Thank you. And I give the call to the member for Forrest.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Now, I began my first speech in this parliament by thanking the people in my electorate of Forrest for the faith and confidence they showed in electing me to represent them in the federal parliament. In this, my valedictory speech, I thank them most sincerely for that faith and confidence over 6 elections. It has been an honour and a privilege to share you, the people of Forrest, during these years, and I've been absolutely grateful for every single day I've had here. Can I also thank my colleagues who are here in the chamber today? They're here in the same way that many of you supported my maiden speech 17 years ago as the 1038th member of this House. Only out of 1,244 in total now. I was part of the class of 2007, the election where there were only 7 Liberals, Rowan Ramsey, Luke Simpkins, Steve Irons, Scott Morrison, Alex Hawke and Stuart Robert, and our one National Party member, Mark Colton, newly elected. And now, even though the Coalition lost that election, I can well remember the excitement we all shared. We have worked so well together. To me, this speech is my opportunity to say thank you. Firstly, I thank those who have actively worked with me over the years to identify and help me secure, which has actually been unprecedented federal investment in infrastructure projects and programs delivered into the southwest during my time as the member for Forrest. This includes the people in my electorate and my coalition colleagues during our 9 years in government who understood and responded to the need for and supported this critical investment. Investment that was so badly needed in what is one of the fastest-growing, most economically diverse, dynamic and productive regional areas in Australia, with mining, resource manufacturing, agriculture, forestry, fisheries, construction, tourism, retail. The southwest is its own economic powerhouse. It's also a region where people increasingly choose to live, to work, to raise a family, to invest and to retire. The federal government investment has been critical to sustaining and the development of the region. It was often basic infrastructure funding, roads, bridges, the life-saving mobile phone towers, airport freight at Busselton Airport, in aged care, in local government infrastructure, often basic infrastructure that can be taken for granted in metro areas. Well, let me tell you that those of us who live in the regions respect and value every single taxpayer dollar that is spent in our communities. We know that this infrastructure is critical and saves lives. Well, it took over 6 years of work and persistence for me to secure what is now $1 billion, 80% of the value of the project for funding the Bunbury Outer Ring Road. Thank you to my colleagues. And the dualling of the carriageway from Capel to Busselton. My focus, though, for the project delivery has been on local procurement in our southwest. I want to thank the unsung heroes I've met and worked with and for. Our local police, who I believe are at increasing risk every single day. They're out on the road. A special thank you to our emergency services volunteers, our transport sector and amazing truck drivers who are on the road delivering day and night. In my opinion, Australia runs on the back of a truck. The unsung heroes who are also our farmers who day in and day out supply us with some of the highest quality, fresh, locally and regionally produced, homegrown food, some of the best in the world in our southwest. Our farmers need far less red, green and any other form of tape you want to talk about, and less interference from activist groups. As Michael Partridge, a local dairy farmer in my electorate, said, I feed 50,000 people every year. How about you just say thank you and let me get on with it? Well, as a dairy farmer, I agree. And where water flows, food grows, which is why our farmers need ongoing access to quality local irrigation and water supplies. Harvey Water in my electorate is a farmer-owned cooperative supplying gravity-fed irrigation water to its farmer members and fit-for-purpose water for industry through a series of pipes and channels, multi-award winning and great at their job. Perhaps to the great frustration and disappointment of some who at the time didn't think our farmers were up to the job and openly said that Harvey Water would go broke and fail. Well, nearly 30 years on, Harvey Water and those very same farmers have proven them wrong. And no, our farmers are not stupid. They are business people in their own right. But I must thank our community services volunteers and sporting club members who in our regional parts of Australia are often the glue that hold our small regional communities together. These are the people I've loved meeting with and listening to, hard-working, selfless Australians, our volunteers, the ones who stand up when our communities are most at risk or in need. They are also the people I have great respect for because of their direct involvement in their communities and our communities. They know best what is needed and what will work in their own communities. To me, along with our current Australian Defence Force members and veterans, our volunteers represent the best of us, which is in part why regional Australia matters and regional people have earned and deserve respect. No one should ever forget that it is regional Australia, its industries, its businesses and its people that have and do create the wealth that supports the basic services that Australians rely on every day. We should not be merely the dumping ground for endless kilometres of offshore wind and onshore wind, solar farms and transmission lines at the expense of prime food-producing land. Yeah. We should also not be bearing the brunt of the closure of industries such as live sheep or live cattle and our globally acknowledged best practice working hardwood forestry sectors. I wish every Australian could visit our southwest Wellington Discovery Forest to see how this most renewable, sustainable industry actually works. Being the member for Forrest, though, has given me the opportunity to provide the strong voice for these regional Australians. For those of us who live and work in the regions, the tradespeople, our tradies, who work in the businesses and industry, and that, as I said, create Australia's wealth. I am so proud of them. Regions like the south-west of WA, where my family history is, and where I was brought up by my parents, both of whom died in 2000 before I entered the Parliament. Now, I know they would be incredibly proud of my work. However, my mother would have been quietly worried sick at some of what I've had to deal with. By comparison, my dad, who was blunt in the extreme, it's where I get it from. Okay? He would have constantly reminded me, as always, as he always did from a kid, just do, and I would bear your indulgence, Deputy Speaker, please insert a particular swear word here. Please just do the so-and-so job, will you? Right? That was Dad. Just do the so-and-so job. Get the job done. And my dad was a pioneer of earth-moving and cartage in the southwest. He was the only person I know to have a licence to cut wood out of Kings Park in World War II to keep Princess Margaret Children's Hospital operating with steam. My mother fundraised and worked tirelessly to provide our tiny little hometown of Brunswick Junction with its first and second ambulance. This was Brunswick's first ever emergency medical service. Now, a home phone as a kid was the ambulance phone, and we had to be able to get an ambulance to the right place with the 2 drivers each time. She was not only, my mum, an ambulance volunteer, but she also provided that critical first aid in our house, I threw here out there, and delivered a baby in the front seat of a car whenever it was needed. Her instruction to us, Dad said, do it the so-and-so job. Mum said, if a job is worth doing, it's worth doing well. I thank them both for their values, their hard work ethic and their lifetimes of volunteering and working for our community. They were great role models and by their actions gave me a hands-on apprenticeship of what's needed in a small community. Get involved, help out, get the job done. I often refer to my mother as the wind beneath my wings. And my father, who was a migrant, never forgot what he owed this great country for the opportunity it gave him. The opportunity to work hard, to save his money, to put a roof over his family's heads and run his own small business. What a great country. Now, he was never going to be wealthy, but he was always going to enrich his own community. My husband and I bought our first dairy farm on the day we got married. He said, well, don't marry me for my money, because it's all printed in red, and he was right. But interest rates went from 17% to 23%, and yes, it was tough, but we built a small business. I became very involved in the dairy industry, including voluntary marketing and promotion with our milk industry group and the Australian Dairy Corporation. Now, farming, water and regional issues followed, and as a community volunteer, spent 10 years, was a fabulous 10 years, as the president of my local AFL footy club. Now, I thank my husband, Charlie, who encouraged me to take on this role, who, as you all understand, never made me feel guilty for not being home. And for the many years he did everything he could to make my job easier. I thank my family, my son Kim, daughter-in-law and Deanna, and their family who took on all the dairy farming jobs over the past 17 years. A special mention of my 3 much-loved grandchildren, Dylan, Simon and Sophie, who've grown up with a nonna. If you're Italian of descent or anything, you understand nonna, who has missed many of their special birthdays and events, but are great kids who never complained. I thank them for fitting in with my schedule for our family tradition of Italian sausage making and sauce making days. Now, they were very patient when people would stop for a chat when they were out with me in public. And at times, using my grandson's own words, they doubled up as my bodyguards at certain times. I also thank them for what they've had to put up with because they shared the same surname. To my precious daughter Kylie, who is with us today, thank you for your love, support and strength, and for allowing me to tell your story of your very personal and dreadful endometriosis journey. Now, this motivated me to work with my wonderful colleagues here to deliver the first ever National Action Plan for Endometriosis, which brought ongoing investment and commitment for women suffering from this incurable lifetime disease. 11 days in ICU with you, sweetheart. All I wanted for you was to live, and so far you have. I'm sorry your partner, Mark, is not here, but together you've catered for, and the Leader of the Opposition can vouch for this, for so many dinners and functions at my home, along with our reliable and efficient outsider, Scott Chatley. I thank my sister Judy, my brother Lindsay and all my family, close friends who've been absolutely unwavering over these years in their love, support and patience. And I cannot forget my loyal Harvey Bulls Football Club crew. Well, Jenny and Naira Matla are here today, my dear friends, who live in Sydney and every election flew over to the southwest to work on my toughest booths, because they were tough as well. Thank you both. I am so pleased you're here. I thank the Liberal Party of Australia and in particular our Forrest Division branch members for their unwavering commitment and support and their practical help and support in manning booths, and I also pay tribute to and remember past members who are no longer with us. I thank Dr Steve Thomas, who chaired each of my campaign. Now, Steve's straightforward practical approach and advice was a major reason we won 6 elections, and we've done so much more since together. A very sincere thanks to the late Senator Judith Adams. Judith showed me the ropes of door knocking for half a day in Augusta and then said, "You'll be right," and just get on with it. Thank you to the colleagues who were there to mentor and support me in the early years, the wonderful Dr. Mel Washer and Bronwyn Bishop. I learnt so much from them. They were tough, they were experienced, but they were generous MPs who were prepared to share their wisdom with me. I thank my fiercely loyal and hard-working electorate office team. Vicky Rake, who started as my campaign secretary and went on to work with me for 12 years in many different roles, including as Whip's clerk in our Chief Government Whip's office team, along with Nathan Wynne, whose knowledge of the history and workings of the Parliament were and are invaluable. To Julie O'Sullivan, who was wonderfully calm and extremely efficient in her role during what was a seriously challenging 45th Parliament that began with a one-seat majority. The Whips team of Bert Van Manen, Rowan Ramsey and our National Party Whips worked so well together during this time. Thank you all, and thank you to all of the colleagues who worked so well with me during this time. Thank you very much. A very special acknowledgement to all of my WA colleagues when we all worked so hard to deliver a fairer GST arrangement for Western Australia. To Kerry Dawson, Jamie Martin, Robin Roney, Samantha O'Connor, Dylan Gorski, his carers, and the Newton Moore Education support students and their carers who've done work experience in my office over the years. My electorate staff deserve thanks for all that you've done, not just for me, but for the councillors' constituents, businesses and community groups who you've helped over the years. They were often needing your care and compassion, and you gave it. And ongoing, we have Robin, who's currently working with the service clubs to help a man who's an auto electrician who provides second-hand vehicles for women who are escaping domestic violence, Nathan Reid. Your ongoing work shows your compassion, and we will make sure that that gets done by you. Thank you also to the electorate office staff who have moved on to other opportunities over the years. One of these is Ryan Hadji, who only heard yesterday that my valedictory was today. Well, he flew all night just to get here to be here. Ryan, thank you so much. And I cannot forget my Christmas mail-out volunteer envelope stuffers. Right? You all understand the value of envelope stuffers. We tallied it up today, and I think they've actually stuffed over 1 million envelopes in my time. A massive thank you to my Assistant Regional Development Ministerial team who are here today for their exceptional advice. Sophie Beaton, Sam Shirley, Rob Terrell, DLO, Andrew Wilson. Thank you for your hard work and dedication, particularly in dealing with the challenges we faced during the COVID pandemic, the global pandemic, when we looked after the needs of Australia's most remote communities in Christmas and Cocos Keeling Islands and Norfolk Island. I must also thank the 53 Regional Development Australia committees who dialed into me in my kitchen table at home 3 times a week to provide live, invaluable, accurate information about what was happening on the ground in each of their regions during the pandemic. From these meetings, we developed a regional intelligence bulletin, which was passed on to every ministry, the various ministries necessary to directly assist in the government's COVID response. I am proud of what we all achieved together, and our key department staff as well. And my teams know that they are just like family to me. And like my family, they are worth their weight in gold. Thank you to all our truly amazing parliamentary staff, Mr Speaker. The Chamber, the committee and support staff, security and Comcar drivers, the gardeners, the maintenance workers and cleaners, our hospitality and catering, as well as our baristas, I see many of you using those, who work on the coffee carts. And I must thank the AFP, who work so hard to keep us safe. Their constant protective security deserves our respect. In my opinion, they're legends. Those here in and around the Parliament House are WA AFP, who looked after me with great care during a risky situation. I really appreciate everything you do for us domestically and for Australia around the world. Another person I need to thank is Julian Krieg. During his time as WA's Regional Financially Counselling Service as a chair, but whenever one of the men who had the courage to ring me when they were in desperate personal circumstances, Julian was my emergency go-to for practical help. On one occasion alone, he drove all night to get to a man I was particularly concerned about. Now, to Julian's great credit, each of one of those men he helped has gone on with their lives, the best results we could have hoped for in the circumstances. Equally, many other Wheatbelt families and men supported through the Regional Men's Health Initiative, who've relied on Julian and his team over many years, have made sound decisions about their family and or their business future. But I thank you, Julian, if you're watching, for the lives you've saved. This is more proof that every day we have as a member of this House really matters and makes a difference and shows what a difference we can make. And I love what I've done with palliative care and my work in childhood dementia. In part, when I was elected, I was actually old enough, as you can see, to know that tomorrow is guaranteed to no one, which is why we need to make the most of every day in life and in politics, not just because we owe it to our constituents, but also because each day we serve in this Parliament is actually one day less we will get to serve in this Parliament, particularly when you're in government. And please don't ever kid yourself, and this is the old whip coming out now. No matter what your margin is, there is absolutely no job security in politics. Either your own side can take you out, the other side can take you out, or the media, or all three. So don't ever forget what it takes to get here. Now, I've kept my very ugly but comfortable first campaign door-knocking shoes. I kept them right where I could see them every day I got dressed, just to remind me of what it took to get here and to never waste a day. Now, as Vicky knows, there was blood in those shoes. It was a very hot lead-up to that 2007 election, and in those days I had a 21,000 square kilometre electorate to get around, along with a range of major towns. Like many of us in certain areas, I got used to being told where to go in very graphic terms. And I admit I did get to the point at saying at times, I'm actually looking for directions. Could you please tell me where to go nicely? And yes, I was chased by Rottweilers, and the only dog that met me was a Jack Russell. It's not even a Great War story. But on the first day after I was elected, I sat down and thought about what I wanted on my last day as the member for Forrest. And what I wanted was the respect of good people who knew what I was trying to achieve and who knew that my heart was in it. I wanted to maintain my integrity in what is rightly, a tough political world. That original class of 2007 became great mates who learnt a lot together. A number of us, along with our regional colleagues, have worked year in and year out on every regional and rural issue, such as higher education and youth allowance access for issues for regional kids. We've been at it for years, and we brought together 30 of our colleagues as we worked through this. And on the critical importance and needs of small business in regional areas. Small business, often the lifeblood of small regional community, who employ the majority of the private sector workforce. And small business in our communities often give young people the first job ever, and for older people, often their last job. With several of my colleagues, I've worked closely with the dynamic Small Business Minister Bruce Bilson on delivering many sound small business policies and initiatives. Early on in my time as an MP, I was a member of the Communications Committee, which did a report into cyber safety and young people. I realised then, from the survey we did of young people, just what we were dealing with online, what they were dealing with online, and how much risk they were exposed to. I quietly developed a set of overheads. I was encouraged by the Harvey Business and Professional Women to offer it to our local primary school, and that was the start. As most of you know in this chamber, I've delivered hundreds, well over 400, I think, plus of these, into school children from pre-primary through to high school, very quietly and very carefully, aimed at helping them to stay safe online and know how to get help and where to get help. Mostly, though, to encourage families to be involved from the first day the first device is given to a child. A number of schools in my electorate have asked me to come in each year, or when they had a particular problem caused by online behaviour or the constantly evolving risks with certain games, apps and sites. I want to thank these schools and the parents who've come along to these sessions. And over the years, a number of teachers have quietly said to me, "You have saved lives today." I knew it mattered and I knew it worked. And when the mum of an 11-year-old girl, after I've been into their school, rings my office and says, "My daughter has just come home, she's listened to what you've said and the way you explained it, she's been groomed online now, today." I think I'm possibly, though, the first Liberal Party member to have been appointed as a whip on day one in the Parliament. Possibly. I think it might be true. And yes, it was a very steep learning curve, but the wise and capable Alex Sunley was an invaluable mentor. Much of what I learnt from Alex stood me in great stead when I was appointed as the first female Chief Government Whip in Australia's history. It wasn't just the practical and parliamentary organisational side of this role that was so important. A major part was to provide feedback from the backbench to the Prime Minister and to give frank and fearless advice to the Prime Minister, even if he may not have always wanted to hear it. There is a great deal of trust involved in this role. I have always and will always maintain the confidences of the Prime Minister, my ministers, and members of Parliament and staff members who have chosen to come to me. And no, I will never write a book about those confidences or disclose those or this information to anyone, not one person. So to my colleagues, I don't need to tell you that national security, the defence of this nation, is the government's #1 priority. The Coalition has always prioritised national security. All my life this has been a priority for me. Well before being elected, my family lived through World War II, and my mother was a World War II widow. Her husband was killed in Papua New Guinea in 1943. My sisters never knew their father, and my family has lived with this loss all our lives. So I know directly what it takes to defend Australia, the sacrifices made by my mum's husband, Jack Leonard, and the over 103,000 brave and dedicated members of our Defence Force who have lost their lives to protect our freedoms. But I also directly understand the sacrifice made by their families, like my mother and my sisters, which was why I became involved with the Parliamentary Defence Force program as soon as I came into this place. And I acknowledge today Major Daniel Tidd, who's here with the reciprocal ADF program. And I took part in as many of these programs as I could. I wanted to meet and listen to our people on the ground wherever they were deployed. I wanted to hear from them exactly what they were dealing with, whether they had the right equipment and support to do what was needed wherever they were deployed to. And one early ADF program had a very profound effect on me. It was the trip to Afghanistan in 2011, which ended in the week leading to the taking out of bin Laden on the ground with the troops. Prior to that time, I knew we'd had problems with the CV joints on the labs, and we'd lost one of our first combat engineers in an IED explosion. Now, I wanted to hear from his mates directly what had happened, and I did. It was something I will never forget. And every one of these defence programs that I've done reinforced to me what great Australians our ADF members are. And I was given a very direct lesson in how to respect and how respected our ADF is overseas. Many years ago on a delegation, I laid a wreath at Tyne Cot Cemetery in Belgium to honour the memory of the over 1,369 Australians buried there. I followed that up with a visit to Polygon Wood Cemetery. At Ypres, I met the oldest Menengate bugler, and I thanked him for the huge commitment he and his volunteers made by playing the last post every evening. That was over 30,000 times at that point. He looked at me very seriously and he said, "You listen to me." At the time, the Germans were determined to destroy our nation and our people. All we are and all we have is because of your Australians' blood on our soil. The least we can do is play your last post. Now, we all understand how serious the Pacific and regional and global security risk is. On home soil, I've been absolutely devastated by the rise in anti-Semitism that has been allowed to flourish in Australia. My one surviving sister, Judy, whose dad was killed in World War II, died defending Australia and its values, said to me, "This is not the Australia my dad fought and died for." She is right. It is the duty of each one of us in this place to fight for and ensure that our democracy, freedoms and rights are preserved and protected. I have great faith in the common sense and genuine goodness of the Australian people. So to every young Australian, you live in the best country in the world. You are not limited by your postcode to what you can achieve and what you will achieve. Be proud of Australia and be prepared to work for and fight for this country. To my coalition colleagues, as a farmer, a small business owner and a regional Australia, we have never needed a coalition government more than we do right now. I've been farming for over 50 years and I've never been as worried. And it's a genuine worry, as my colleagues know well. To the Leader of the Opposition, Peter Dutton, and our team, including Ben Small, the Liberal candidate for Forrest, all strength to your arms. Make the most of every day. Do everything you can to win the election, but never forget the real forgotten people every day, or what makes us Liberals. On both sides of this House, I've had some wonderful relationships and friendships, and I value them dearly. Please all stay safe and well. Look after your loved ones. And a final thank you to the people of Forrest. I've been grateful for every day you've given me. Thank you, Speaker.